The feeling of helplessness can be overwhelming. Like the world is rushing around you at 1,000,000 miles an hour and you're just trying to stay on your feet. You do your best to keep up, but it feels as if the ground is being pulled out from under you. You want to scream, to make everything stop, to just slow the chaos down. At its core, helplessness feels like everything is closing in on you. Your mind, your body, your world. You want to push it away, to reclaim your space. Sometimes that comes out as tears, as panic, as anxiety, or even anger. If you're lucky, you find a moment of release through movement, yoga, or breath. Something that reminds you of spaciousness. Because spaciousness is what's missing in that moment. It's what the mind and body are crying out for. And when you manage to open even a little space, notice what returns. Choice. And choice is where a sense of control begins. In real life, that means noticing right now what you can influence and what you can't. Psychologists call this your locus of control. And we'll talk about the two types, your internal locus of control and your external locus of control. With an external locus of control, the wheel of the car feels outside of you. Other people, luck, systems, or bad timing have it. With an external locus of control, your state depends on what they do. With an internal locus of control, the wheel is within you. Your choices, effort, boundaries, attention, and the next wise steps are all within your power to choose. It doesn't mean you have control over everything. It means maintaining authorship of your responses and stories. When your locus of control is external, it feels like other people or forces decide your fate and emotional state. You're waiting to be chosen, to be rescued, or permitted, and to some degree, you feel helpless. Shifting toward an internal locus of control, again, doesn't mean controlling everything, but it does mean reclaiming authorship of your responses and finding the places where you do have both agency and choice, and focusing on those. Here are some signs that you might be externalizing control. You think, I can't feel okay unless they change or make a different choice. You compulsively check for reassurance or news. You're constantly thinking about other people's motives or thought processes. You make demands instead of requests, and you collapse in despair when you hear no. Beyond recognizing the difference between an internal and external locus of control, it helps to notice that helplessness tends to show up in two ways. First, there's what is called ingrained or chronic helplessness, which is a long-running learned state that settles in when life has felt uncontrollable for a long time, or when it was out of control in early childhood. Things like chaotic family life, chronic stress, trauma, or highly controlling environments can create it. It often shows up as low initiative, collapse, or shutdown. It can show up as numbness, shame, or those why try moments. It can be created by an over-reliance on others to decide for you. The cost of ingrained helplessness is shrinking goals, strained relationships, missed opportunities, increased anxiety or depression, and a more external locus of control. What helps when you're carrying this is to stack tiny proofs of your own power or agency. So if you're feeling this, try keeping a list of micro wins, small wins, where you made clear choices to reclaim power that you were giving to others. And you don't have to wait to be in those situations to do it. Make a list of places in your life where you want to reclaim power and rehearse doing it in your mind, all while reminding yourself that the reality of doing it will never be as bad as you fear. In the case of ingrained helplessness of this kind, it also helps to seek trauma-informed support, either in therapy or groups, and to cultivate a supportive environment and community so you're not rebuilding alone. The second kind of helplessness is situational or momentary helplessness. These are acute spikes when something specific is outside your control right now, like a rejection, a delay, someone else's choice, or bad news. When you feel it, it tends to look like urgency and panic, spiraling thoughts, the impulse to over-control small things, and even doom scrolling to distract your attention. The costs of acting from impulse in these situations are reactive messaging, burning bridges, decision fatigue, and body tension. What helps in the moment is simple and concrete. You need to create spaciousness with something as simple as a 3-breath reset. Remembering to do this helps you take stock of what's within your control and what's outside of it. Ask yourself, what's mine and what isn't? You can also decide to time box your worry for 5-10 minutes and then focus on something else before dealing with it. The important thing in these moments is to acknowledge your feeling and the thought process or perceptions that got you there. Name the events and then look for what's within your control, like your breath or your choice of how to react. Let's look at an example. You're waiting at a cafe for someone who's now 25 minutes late. First, name what's here: helpless, hijacked, angry, restless. Next, notice the story riding with those feelings. Their lateness means I'm not important to them and that they take me for granted. And beneath that, maybe there's fear. Maybe you're thinking, if I set a clear boundary, I might lose the relationship. After recognizing that your friend's lateness and your emotions feel out of your control in the moment, turn to your internal locus of control and decide consciously what you will do. You might choose to stay for 10 more minutes and enjoy your time. Order tea, read, just breathe, and people watch. You might choose to leave and send a clear, kind message. You might even decide to adapt by bringing work or a book and accepting their chronic lateness as part of the deal. Or you might have a boundary conversation and set a line in the sand. For example, if you're more than 10 minutes late without a heads up, I'll go ahead with my plans and we'll reschedule. The point is, choose an act from conscious choice, not from the hijack. Don't focus on how you might change the other person. You can't. That's outside of your control. Focus on how either protecting yourself or adapting to this situation will be best for you, even if that means feeling sad or disappointed. To sum up the 2 types of helplessness, think of chronic helplessness as a climate you're slowly warming with consistent practice, and situational helplessness as a passing storm you ride out with immediate tools. Both benefit from the same core moves. Create spaciousness. Return to the body. Refocus your attention to your internal locus of control and choose small doable actions that take care of you, not trying to change the other, and are actually within your control to do. In this course, we've seen that emotion begins with perception, how you appraise a moment. The story you lay over reality shapes your beliefs, feelings, body state, and urges. When the story says, I have no power here, your body tightens, your breath shortens, and helplessness grows. When the story is more reality-based, when you name both what's outside your hands and what's still in your hands, space opens and choice returns. Now, let's take a look at a list of ways in which our minds tend to spin reality that creates helplessness. First, there's globalizing and catastrophizing. Expanding a single problem into a sense that everything is out of control by piling unrelated worries together and losing perspective. Next, performance bias. This is believing things will always stay the same. Next, personalization or false responsibility. This is taking on others' feelings and outcomes as if they're yours to fix, assuming it's your job to make everyone okay. Next, there's mind reading or fortune telling. This is deciding you know what others think or that a negative outcome is certain without real evidence. Next is an all or nothing attitude. This is dismissing small steps because you can't solve everything at once, equating partial influence with zero influence. Next is external permission seeking. This is waiting for someone else's approval or response before acting, which postpones your own choices. Finally, there's time collapse, where you equate the past to the now. This is letting past experiences dictate the present as though it's the same story with the same ending. After you spot these patterns, practice gentle resets. Name the pattern, return to the facts, sort what's yours to influence and what isn't. Replace always never with right now. Ask for actual data instead of mind reading, and take one small next step. You can also practice this 3-line rewrite that I'll outline in a moment as a quick way to do this. First, name facts only. Name what happened without interpretation. Next, name your story. Ask yourself what meaning you're adding or giving to the situation. Finally, name your move. Think about one action or mental shift that's inside your control that you can take right now. This can be as simple as breathing deeply and calming yourself. Here's an example. My partner hasn't texted back for 6 hours. The story I'm telling is, I'm being ignored and there's nothing I can do about it. After creating spaciousness, I decide my next move. I'll send one clear, kind message. Set the phone down, take 3 slow breaths, and work on my next task. Choosing to assume goodwill on the part of my partner, even though I'm feeling anxious. Each time you shift your perception, even a little, from no power to this part is mine, the feeling of helplessness softens and agency returns, minimizing anxiety, anger, and feeling sad. To illustrate, let me share a bit of my own story. I care deeply about peace. Peace between nations, within families, and among everyday people. I grew up in a conflict zone and felt the anxiety and heat of it. For a time, I was politically active, and I quickly realized there was very little actual peacemaking in politics. I kept asking myself, where can I make an actual difference? As I studied this more, I realized peace begins in our intimate relationships. If I could help people build healthier connections, that change would ripple outward, eventually influencing politics and even international relationships. What I did was ask myself what was within my internal locus of control to affect, so that my long-term desire for world peace could move closer, even if it takes 10,000 years for it to manifest. That path led to this platform, Alchemy, and these courses on interpersonal dynamics and emotional intelligence. I embraced the ingrained helplessness of my childhood by looking inside myself to what I had control over and moved forward. A vivid image that captures the feeling of helplessness is Princess Leia chained to Jabba the Hutt from the famous Star Wars scene. She's trapped, restrained, and controlled. Someone else is tugging at the chain, deciding her fate. That's what helplessness can feel like, as if your freedom, your choices, and your voice have been taken away. But remember what happens later in the story. Leia turns that chain into her power. She wraps it around Jabba's neck and reclaims her freedom. This isn't a call to violence, of course. It's a reminder that within you is the same fierce determination to reclaim order, autonomy, and direction in your life. You don't have to strangle your challenges. You just have to stop letting them yank you around. You have to apply the strength of your will to your life. Take risks at appropriate times, make clear choices, and lay clear boundaries. But to be able to do that, you need clarity of direction. You need to know what it is you want and feel inwardly empowered enough to act in the direction you want to move in. And to do that, in order to be able to make a clear choice and for true healing to begin, your spirit needs room to move. Your inner voice can't guide you when you're crowded by panic, pressure, the thoughts of other people, and other noise. You need a little order, a little control, and most importantly, within that order, spaciousness. Whether helplessness shows up occasionally or feels like a pattern in your life, the antidote begins with space. Here's a couple of simple ways to create it. The first is very simple. Pause and breathe. When you feel like everything's spinning out of control, your breath becomes shallow and quick. If you gently bring attention to it and slow it down, even 3 slow conscious breaths into your full belly begin to open space inside you. It sounds simple, but it's profound. And if you practice deep breathing into your belly regularly, even for a few minutes at a time, your ability to respond from an internal locus of control drastically increases. The second method is to visualize expansion. It's well known that visualization can change how we feel. In this spaciousness visualization, close your eyes and imagine yourself at the tip of a rocket ship about to launch. You can feel the vibration beneath you and the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then lift off. You shoot through the atmosphere, past the clouds, through the layers of the outer atmosphere, into space, beyond the moon, beyond the entire solar system, and into vast, silent, peaceful darkness. The stars spread out around you, infinite and calm. You open the hatch and float into that nothingness, tumbling gently, surrounded by stillness. And in that moment of spaciousness, you can ask your own inner voice for guidance on how to act or which direction to take in your life. Once again, if you practice this visualization for a few minutes, once or twice a day, you'll notice a dramatic change in your ability to respond to life from your internal locus of control. What I love about visualization is that it speaks directly to your unconscious mind, which communicates through symbols and feelings, not words. Affirmations can be helpful over time, but imagery reaches deeper. It tells your body that you are free, that you have space, that you are safe. And if space imagery doesn't resonate, visualize yourself in a forest, a garden, by the ocean, anywhere that feels alive and open. Or spend time physically in those places if you can. Although sometimes your thoughts are too noisy to feel present even in nature, which is why visualization can be more powerful. They allow your inner world to experience calm even when the outer one feels chaotic. Feeling helpless often comes from trying to hold what isn't ours to hold. Some parts of life are simply outside of our control, and acknowledging that truth without collapsing into despair creates immediate space inside. It allows you to ask, what is within my control? So here are some common realities that can trigger helplessness. First, rejection or indifference. Someone doesn't choose you, won't respond, or pulls away. Another person's choice. A loved one persists in a path you believe is harmful, such as addiction, overspending, overworking, or unhealthy relationships. Limits on helping. Someone you care about won't accept your support or isn't ready. Health realities. Chronic illness, accidents, fertility struggles, neurodiversity, or mental health challenges. Institutional factors. Bureaucracy, layoffs, housing constraints, immigration or visa denials, or biased systems. Economic pressures. Inflation, recessions, industry shifts, or unequal access to opportunity. Civic and global events, political turmoil, war, social unrest, racism, or environmental degradation. Nature itself, natural disasters, pandemics, extreme weather. Timing and uncertainty, delays, missed opportunities, endings that arrive too soon or too late. Now let's make it personal. After this video, write your own list of situations, large or small, where you feel you have little or no control. Be specific. Include the everyday, like a coworker's tone, for example. Include the intimate, such as a partner's ambivalence. And include the global, such as news that broke your heart. Naming them doesn't make you powerless. It clarifies where your energy shouldn't be spent and where it can be. So if you choose, you can also write down actions or mental shifts, no matter how small, that are in fact within your ability to control that would make the situation better, even if it took time. For example, if you feel helpless about environmental degradation, The actions you can take are being better about recycling, voting for the right people, showing up at town halls, and boycotting certain companies. These actions may feel small, but they're contributing to a sense of empowerment, community, and they'll inspire others. Another powerful engine of helplessness is wanting to change the past, even unconsciously. Sometimes our mind plays tricks on us and replays scenes which we can't redo, and we illogically keep trying to fix in the present. In relationships, this can show up as unconscious hope that our partner will finally give us the love we didn't receive as children. Attention, safety, unconditional love, and we project that need onto them now. When they inevitably fail to heal our history, we feel desperate, angry, or helpless. When you catch yourself trying to get something outside yourself to fix the past wound, instead of trying to rewrite the past, try the following. First, recognize the projection. For example, I'm asking this person to fulfill an old need. Second, offer self-parenting. Place a hand over your heart and say, I'm here for you. I won't abandon you. To yourself, of course. Third, offer yourself the space to experience the grief and the helpless feelings you experienced in the past that can't be retroactively changed. This can be through breath, meditation, visualization, spending time in nature, or discussing it with a friend or therapist. Fourth, give yourself space to feel the helplessness and notice how it's showing up in your life right now. Gentle, honest observation helps it soften, and you'll feel more empowered in everyday situations. One more thing you can do to bring order and spaciousness into your physical world is to create a small altar or sacred corner in your home, a place that represents peace, life, and openness. Include objects, images, or symbols that remind you of what truly matters, your aspirations, your values, your freedom, and your boundaries. When everything feels out of control, our attention scatters into small details. What to buy, what to fix, how to meet everybody's expectations. The altar helps you refocus on the bigger picture, the kind of life you want to create, the energy, storytelling, and feelings that you control inside of you, not just the tasks that fill the day. This space becomes a daily reminder that order and serenity can coexist within uncertainty. The altar doesn't need to be elaborate. A candle, a flower, a photo, a stone, anything that represents spaciousness and alignment for you. When you look at it, breathe and remember, there's room for me here. In that room, your spirit can speak, guidance can return, and the noise of life begins to fade into the background. The world moves fast, and sometimes it does knock you off your feet, but helplessness doesn't have to define you. When you stop fighting the chaos and start creating space inside and around you, you rediscover your strengths and reclaim the places where you do have power. Spaciousness isn't the absence of life. It's the environment that allows life to breathe and allows you to cope. You don't have to control everything. You just need to remember that within the storm, there's always stillness at the center. That stillness is where your wisdom lives and where the seeds of your new choices and actions take root. Now let's move into your homework for this lesson. Of course, practice the guided visualization for this lesson. It helps you internalize these concepts so they settle into your body and subconscious naturally, becoming instinctive rather than something you have to force. Practice the spaciousness visualization daily. Try the rocket ship or nature visualization for 5 minutes daily and as needed throughout your day, even for a minute during a busy day. Take a minute and just visualize that. Focus on the feeling of spaciousness and calm. Create your anchor. Make a small altar or visual space that represents openness and your internal locus of control. Include symbols that ground and inspire you. Breathe through the chaos. Each time you feel overwhelmed this week, Take 3 slow breaths and remind yourself, I am creating space inside me. In order to remember to do that, make time to take deep breaths even when you're not feeling overwhelmed. Next, reflect on this. Think about what triggers your sense of helplessness. Are there specific patterns, environments, or people that heighten your sense of being out of control? Finally, reframe. Write one statement that reminds you of your agency, such as, I can't control everything, but I can always choose how I respond. Tape that message somewhere where you'll see it every day.